Hey YouTube! I decided to make this video as a response to one of the latest, completely delusional hit pieces that Thunderf00t made about Elon Musk. I truly hope that you watch this video till the end, because it was a lot of work. So this guy, Thunderf00t, is a chemist named Philip Mason, who apparently transitioned from being a rational YouTuber and self-appointed seer of delusion to become completely delusional himself. If not, as we will see in a couple of cases, a deliberate liar. I will probably also have to do a second video because it's not quite feasible to point out every distortion, omission, guilt by association tactic when not blatant lie that this liar is duping his audience with. So the first one is not namely a lie, but more like a distorted way to describe Autopilot, which admittedly isn't 100% autonomous yet, but Thunderf00t uses outdated data and superficial reasoning in order to just paint a false narrative about it. In his video, he compares Musk's announcements to this chart published by Forbes. That is supposed to be the data about the number of miles with autopilot and no crashes compared to human driving and no crashes. But is that the actual data? Well, they corrected it. So let's quickly see the different angles about this. This is the data released by Tesla. It looks like autopilot is vastly more safe than human drivers, but Forbes' hypothesis is that autopilot is mostly deployed on highways, which are safer, so they correct the actual data to match that discrepancy. You can judge on your own if that makes sense or not. Let's assume that that correction makes sense. That's still a comparison between Teslas alone, because they excluded the NHTSA average for all other vehicle crashes. So now that you see the overall data, even if the adjustment made by Forbes was correct, still autopilot would be vastly safer than all the other cars. So in short, if the data from Forbes is to be taken seriously, then autopilot is not safer than regular Teslas, but is still a lot safer than all other means of driving in every other car. Instead, if the data from Tesla was to be taken seriously, then autopilot would be safer than both Teslas with no autopilot and other cars. The next lie is one by omission, but not being content with lying, Thunderf00t manages to make a fool out of himself just 2 seconds later. Let's see how. So Tesla showed a walk-in prototype they said was their developing platform and the supposedly better one that doesn't have walk functionality yet. Of course, Philip cuts to that one directly in order to falsely suggest that that was the only thing they could manage to show on stage live.
I mean, far be it from me to say that the reason that they pre-recorded everything was because their robot couldn't actually do anything.
So here I just accelerated the presentation a little bit in order to show you how it was completely different from what Thunderf00t tried to make you think it was.
What you saw was what we call Bumble C. That's our sort of rough development robot.
So now comes the grotesque part in which Thunderf00t laughably, but proudly, manages to debunk an imaginary, non-existing hoax. Tesla showed a montage of what they clearly specify was done over a period of months.
Yeah, we wanted to show a little bit more what we've done over the past few months with about just humble beginnings.
But that clarity goes lost on Thunderf00t, which doesn't understand the idea of a montage at all, and so starts hallucinating a conspiracy in which Tesla was trying to fool him.
But let's just say all the pre-recorded stuff had weird breaks in it, which gave the impression that it was edited to give the impression that the robot actually worked.
So it had weird breaks, huh? They just told you that they are showing you work that was recorded over a period of months, and you still fail to understand there is no conspiracy to fool you, Phil. I mean, just listen to this guy.
Then in the very next shot, the guy was working at his computer, and his computer is shut down. All of a sudden, there are robots on the screen. And we're going to go from desks apart here to desks pushed together here. So here you see there are 3 metal bars. Boom! All of a sudden, there is only 1 metal bar.
Just imagine this guy all proud of himself that he found out a montage has holes in it.
And his computer is shut down.
Actually, I think that your computer is shut down, Philip. Now remember, the entire section is based on a subjective feeling that Thunderf00t made up in his head. He says that Tesla was trying to give the impression
that the robot actually worked.
Actually, that is false too. They passed the entire presentation commenting about the robot not being ready or usable. They clearly said these were just their humble beginnings.
Just humble beginnings, but
He clearly explained that was just their rough development platform.
What you saw was what we call Bumblebee. That's our sort of rough development robot.
He even joked they didn't want it to fall on its face.
The robot can actually do a lot more than we just showed you. We just didn't want it to fall on its face.
But even if that wasn't clear enough for one that has synced to the level of delusion that Thunderfoot seems to have synced to, Musk openly set the expectations low since the beginning of the presentation.
I do want to set some expectations with respect to our Optimus robot. As you know, last year it was just a person in a robot suit. Compared to that, it's going to be very impressive.
So, if anything, Musk was downplaying this presentation, not the opposite. But no, all of this goes entirely lost on Thunderfoot, because he created in his mind this imaginary conman. A conman that, note well, somehow with his companies is able to transport human beings from Earth to the space station, but still is a conman in Thunderfoot's delusional reasoning. So much so that the same dumb sentence about impressions is in Thunderfoot's mind so solid that he uses it as a segue to jump to an entire different section.
That it was edited to give the impression that the robot actually worked. Kind of like faking a demonstration to give the impression that it's not an entirely fake solar roof tile that you're holding up.
So this is the kind of logic jump Thunderfoot uses to distort reality. So, very quickly. Years ago, Musk presented Solar Roof with a set of different tiles, some of which did not exist. Probably they just expected to make them later. Remember, this is not a product release presentation. They were just shouting out what future product they wanted to release, because at the time, they were doing a very, very limited number of Solar Roof installations. So Thunderfoot uses this fact to dupe his audience into thinking that Solar Roof doesn't exist.
2016, he unveiled fake solar roofs.
And you can see that he's lying on purpose, because he then uses the video of another tile that was released and that does exist and slams on it this big red 100% fake writing on it. So I'll just show you that both that tile and solar roof exist and have been installed on various houses.
The Tesla solar roof. Maybe you've heard it described as unobtainium or vaporware, but I'm up here today on this very slippery roof to give my 1-year review.
So this was a typical day after Hurricane Ian. We had no power from the grid for 8 total days. But since we have Tesla Solar and Powerwall, we basically just lived like normal. We could do everything.
An entirely fake solar roof tile, he unveiled fake solar roofs.
Now that the roof has been operational for a full calendar year, I've gathered a lot of data and a lot of experience.
Fake solar roofs.
All the reasons that I chose Tesla Solar in the first place are still valid. Am I happy that I got solar installed? Absolutely. I would 100% do it again.
Hey everyone, I am northeast of Orlando right now, and look at this. Yes, this is a Tesla solar roof.
He unveiled fake solar roofs.
As to the durability of these shingles, we have another one right here of these being hit with hail in Texas, but I'm not worried about it.
An entirely fake solar roof tile. An entirely fake solar roof tile.
This whole system is really set it and forget it. It's been fantastic.
Thunderfoot often seems to follow a same scheme to sell his lies. He points out that Musk always misses his own timelines, which is mostly true, but he uses that to jump into an entirely fabricated lie about these products never coming into fruition. He even deludes himself into thinking that if he, Philip Mason, decided to announce a time machine release for the afternoon, that would be acting the same way as Musk failing his timelines. He actually said this.
Taking this to its logical conclusion, I should just claim that I'm going to make a flying time machine by 4 o'clock this afternoon.
And he is so sure about this ridiculous way of reasoning, so arrogant in his belief, that he ends up pontificating about the Tesla truck not existing just a month before the truck was actually given to the first customers.
Wasn't something they could do then, and it's not something they can do now. They don't have a truck or an autopilot.
3 weeks later.
And first deliveries are now.
So let's quickly summarize who's the actual liar here, shall we?
2016, he unveiled fake solar roofs.
False. Solar roof was installed all over the place.
An entirely fake solar roof tile.
Half true. At the time, Musk presented a non-existent tile, but Thunderfoot lies about the actually released shingles being fake as well.
Wasn't something they could do then, and it's not something they can do now. They don't have a truck or an autopilot.
All false. The truck was released in December. The Autopilot may not be fully autonomous yet, but is still safer than human driving, or at least it is when compared to non-Tesla cars. Let's also note that to cover for the lie, or failed prediction if you will, about Tesla not having a truck at all, Thunderfoot releases an entire new video in which he starts postulating that the truck is bad. You know, the same truck that just a month before he said didn't exist. Well, now it exists, but it's bad. Of course, I've only scratched the surface when it comes to this guy, and I have more material I would like to cover about this. So I will, in all probability, do at least another video on the same subject, in order to cover the abundant other distortions and omissions, and of course the most important question, what motivation pushes a person with a respectable position to lie so blatantly, or at least to delude himself in asinine errors like these? We'll see this and more in the next video. Thanks for watching, and please like, share and subscribe if you liked the video, or dislike if you didn't.